Welcome to another brand new edition of the MuniciPALS. I'm Matthew,
And I'm Philip.
and we are
Uh,
so overjoyed. Philip, go ahead. You take this one.
oh, I do want to take this one because I have a fondness for my friend who we have on today. I met him a couple of times while I was campaigning for city council, and he ran for mayor and he's running for mayor again. Gil Penalosa. It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me.
Gil, I'm interested. I always ask, ever since it happened, I ask all our guests, can you tell us where you were and how you found out that John Tory resigned?
I was home and watching the news. That's how I found out.
Wow. Yeah, it's it just hit everything on that Friday night. Phil always points to the look on his face when he enters the room.
I desperately need to find that clip because I keep talking about it, but his eyes just bulge as he walks in, sort of like the moment where he realizes there are consequences for his actions. It's a great moment that I'd really like to really capture.
Well, also, I think that we don't really know why he resigned. And also because we don't really know why this affair didn't come out during the campaign, because everybody knew about it. It was 100 people at City Hall knew about it. Everybody in the mayor's office, anybody who was at the mayor's office in the last 2.5 years knew about it. And the reality, I think there is something more behind it. I don't think that the Toronto Star comes out with a questionnaire at 2 p.m. and at 7 p.m. he's resigning. It's not something that I think he would have resigned for, but anyway, that's past. What I do think is that is great because the city has an opportunity, another opportunity, and I think there's a few people running that other than me, and I think that almost anybody will be a better mayor than what Tory would have been. I ran last time because I thought the city was not moving in the right direction, and it was not after his third election. So I think the city really has a great opportunity to elect better.
I couldn't agree more. Philip, why don't you start us off? I know you got a bunch of questions. We're eager to hear about your plans, your platform, whatever you have developed. We're eager to hear all about it. Go ahead, Phil.
I do have it occurs to me, I was thinking I was gonna ask you very specifically, because I know you've worked in cities all over the world and done good work in that regard. But it occurs to me that actually this would be a good question for every mayoral candidate we get. But this was honed specifically for you. And my question to you is, you've worked in cities all over the world. What do you personally, what do you think makes Toronto special?
Well, I love Toronto for many reasons, but I would say two. One is that it's a city where half of us were born in another country. It's truly a city where we have people from everywhere. And one thing that I love is not only that more than half we were born in another country, but that not too many people from any one country. So the ones that were born in another country, we still love that city, wherever we come from. But we also love Toronto. So that is really important because there are some cities where you have 20-30% from one area, and then it becomes a conflict, whether it's the Cubans in Miami or the Mexicans in LA or from Hong Kong in Vancouver. All of a sudden, there is so many people from one country that they want to speak their own language, celebrate their own holidays and whatever. But when it's 3-4% from one place and another 2 from other, that doesn't happen. We want everybody to get along. So I think being such an international city, I think is fantastic. And the second thing that I think makes Toronto unique is nature, the ravines. Like so many people in Toronto have not even been to the ravines. I think we need to promote it. We need to highlight it. I think that just like Vancouver has mountains, we have something even better. We have the ravines that go almost into every neighborhood of the city. 17% of the city are ravines along the creeks. And if we can connect those ravines plus the hydro corridors plus Lake Ontario, I think that makes it truly a magnificent place. And also it's great people, universities and so on. So of course we're a good city, but we could be so much better. That's why I'm running for mayor. But those two things really, with the kind of work that I do, I advise cities. I have worked in over 350 cities in every continent. I could live anywhere. I live in Toronto because I find these two issues fascinating, and I think that that's why it's easy to fall in love with Toronto.
I got a question. So I'd love to know I've read stuff and I've heard you speak on the news, but I just for our listeners, I'd love to hear your position on the Gardiner Expressway. There are some people that think that the entire elevated portion should be scrapped. There are other people that think that east of Jarvis should be scrapped, and there are other people that think it should be rebuilt completely. And I'd love to hear your take on it. And I understand you were part of a deputation
the Infrastructure and Environment Committee, I believe.
Well, let me tell you, for the listeners to understand, this is an elevated highway that was built 60 years ago by the waterfront, by Toronto's waterfront. After 60 years, it's falling apart because most elevated highways, they do fall apart, so they need to have a lot of maintenance, very expensive maintenance. And then 7 years ago, the city evaluated and they said, okay, we need to repair it. And it was going to cost a little bit less than $500 million. And other people said, no, what if we tear it down and do a boulevard with sidewalks and bike lanes and trees and benches and so on. And then it's going to cost also a little bit under $500 million. But somehow Mayor Tory went away and he spoke with some councilors in the suburbs, and he came back and said, oh, what if we do the hybrid? He was good at making up these stories, because then people thought hybrid meant that he was taking the best of each. No, he said what he wanted to do was to tear it down and rebuild it 100 meters to the north. And he said it's only going to cost $1.8 billion. The listeners must understand, $1.8 billion is $600 for every man, woman, and child in Toronto. Imagine that Tory had gone to your house and knock on the door and say, hey, Phil, I need $600. And you say, why? Oh, because I want to save 3 minutes to 2% of the commuters. 2% of the commuters. If you are not a commuter and you are the other 98%, this has no benefit to you. And then he said, oh, Phil, but I see your partner. Oh, it's another 600. Oh, and it's a little kid, another 600. So almost $2,000 per household. That's a lot of money. I mean, it's so much money that is almost half of the budget, 10-year budget for capital for transportations, 44%. So we don't have money for sidewalks because everything is going to the garden. We don't have money for bike lanes because we don't have money for Vision Zero because the money is going there. It's a huge amount of money. So now they have fixed part of it, the west side, but not the east side. So now there's an opportunity to say, okay, with the east side, let's tear it down and let's do a boulevard. Even if it was more expensive, I think we should have torn down all of it. But even if it was more expensive, we should have done it. Why? Because of the benefits. Because of we need to connect the city with the waterfront. Toronto, the whole city is a waterfront city, but we're totally isolated because of that gigantic elevated highway cutting the city. 2, we could save about $1 billion. $1 billion, that's a lot of money. 3, because it's better for the environment, it's better for health, it's better for economic development. Some of the best urbanism in Toronto is being done on the waterfront and along the Don River and all of this, and we would connect all of it. Also, if we do the boulevard, we would open up land to do over 8,000 homes for 15,000 people. So any way you look at it, I think we should do it. Some people are saying, oh, we should not do it because 7 years ago was approved and we should stay on what we approve. What a dumb idea. I mean, that's not a reason, because if we made one of the things that human beings are is that we can build our habitat and we can change. We're not a river. We can go back and reevaluate. And by the way, the east side of the Gardiner is going to be, the construction is going to start in 2026. So there is no big issue stopping. I told today the Deputy Mayor McKelvey and the Infrastructure Committee, I said, look, this is your Bill Davis moment. When the city was building the Spadina Expressway, it was going to be a gigantic highway through the middle of Toronto. At some point, Bill Davis, a conservative premier, said, look, if the goal is to create a transportation system to move cars, the Spadina Expressway is where to start. But if our goal is to create a transportation system for people, the Spadina Expressway is the place to stop. And he stopped it, even though there were hundreds of millions had already been invested. A lot of the dragging of the land to do it was, and of course we are a much better city thanks to Bill Davis for having stopped it. This is what the current mayor and council have this magnificent opportunity to do it better. This is something that is going to improve the quality of life of people for the next 100 years. This is not, there is not such a small thing. And one last comment. The listeners must understand that this was 7 years ago, before COVID. And now a lot of things have changed with COVID. One, many people are not commuting into the downtown. People are working 2 or 3 days from home. Two, we are in a huge financial crisis. So we need a lot of money. So we really need to be flexible. And also the other thing is Torontonians must understand that we don't have money for sidewalks and bike lanes and all of this. And 44% of the users of that Gardiner don't live in Toronto. So for the next 10 years, we're going to spend half of our transportation capital budget on something that almost half of the users don't even live in Toronto. So it doesn't make a sense in any way, environmental, financial, health, or whatever.
Gil, I know you didn't do it intentionally, but you picked the perfect example by choosing me as your theoretical go-to guy for the Gardiner Expressway, John Tory coming knocking. And I say this because, hilariously to your example, I do not own a car. There is no car in my driveway. But of course, for this, what you're talking about, the cost of this Gardiner, it doesn't matter. If you own a car, if you don't own a car, it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
That still is
exactly. Can you imagine? Everybody's paying for this. Everybody. You have a car, don't have a car, you commute, you don't commute, everybody. But they have not been transparent with the city. If they had asked citizens, would you be willing to spend $2,000 per household, $600 per man, woman, or child? People would not, people are not that dumb. To save 3 minutes to 2% of the commuters, people have lots and lots of priorities over that. So I totally agree with you. Many people don't even have a car. I don't have a car. But I'm paying $2,000 for the Gardiner.
And I guess this doesn't really lead to a question, but I have been recently thinking about sort of the city's, I want to say, hypocritical stance between saying it's important to work towards net zero, climate change goals, and what the city is doing, for example, with the Gardiner, as you brought up, and with the TTC by increasing fares, reducing service, making it a service that less people will want to use, where we're moving away from our, it's what, net zero 2040, something like that. Again, I don't have a question. I guess it's just more like, I'm just speaking about my frustrations with the city. It feels like they're not taking, for example, climate change very seriously.
Oh, you're totally right. I think this is something that is very important. We need leaders that are consistent in what people think, what people say, and what people do. So we are talking about climate change, but we're not doing. I mean, the gardeners is a classic example. It's terrible for the environment, for climate change. Also, it's going to be very expensive to maintain an elevator. So why are we doing it? I mean, anybody with any common sense on climate change would never, ever, ever do an elevated highway. Civilized cities are not doing it. Most were doing it 50 years ago, but none are doing it today. So why are we moving in that direction? Why are we, like you said, public transit? Why are we cutting the hours? Why are we cutting the frequency? It's when they say, oh, it's because people are not using it. Well, then they're going to use it even less. If people were not using it when the subway was coming every 3 minutes, they are going to use it even less when it comes every 10 minutes. So it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. So we need to improve the service, or else people are not going to use it.
And what do you say to one of your competitors who wants to make the TTC free?
Well, first, there is nothing that is free, nothing. So if we're going to make TTC free, we are going to have to pay it from somewhere. And I think first, I don't believe in making the TTC free, but also I don't believe in subsidies by age or things like that. I think that we should, in 2023, we should be smarter. We should be subsidizing by need. I think, for example, everybody that is on a fixed income, such as some seniors are on fixed income, people with disabilities are in fixed income, people homeless are in fixed income, so they should have free TTC. But why have a 70-year-old millionaire having free TTC just because he or she is 70, and not a 40-year-old single mom or dad because they are 40 if they live in poverty? So I do think that we should do, and I think it's wrong. Also because for example, when we subsidize all seniors, instead of paying $325, they pay $225. For the people that have money, they don't care. The people that don't have money, $225 is still too much. So instead of saying, let's give everybody $225, let's say, no, the seniors low income, the seniors on fixed income, let's charge 50 cents or maybe even nothing, but only to those that don't have any money. The others, they can pay the regular fee. So I think we should focus on equity and make it free or very close to free to everybody living in poverty or with having disabilities and so on. But not about everybody, because at the same time, we're going to have to get that money from somewhere. It's not that is money going to come from heaven. So the only way to make the TTC free, maybe we have less childcare or less parks, or the streets are going to be dirtier, or there's going to be a lot of other services. I mean, we have a huge crisis of poverty and homelessness. So if we start using money for other things for free, we will not have money for those others.
Here's my theoretical question, like, I guess, about this. Would you have a, not that this is the case right now, clearly it's not. Would you and I think anyone who would campaign on asking the federal or provincial government for anything, I think that's a non-starter. I think you have to kind of campaign on what you're capable of within the city itself. But in a hypothetical situation where the federal and provincial governments actually are funding the TTC more than they currently are, because as far as I understand it, I could be wrong, I believe the TTC is the least subsidized transit in North America. Oh God, I could be very wrong, but in my hypothetical situation, say the province and the federal government are providing more money towards the TTC, and so it wouldn't hurt the city so much if they were to provide free TTC. Do you think that would be doable?
Oh, that would be great. If tomorrow the prime minister says that they're going to subsidize the cost of the TTC, fantastic. Let's make it free. That would be ideal. The
Maybe
same
too
way that
easy.
we have free schools and free health, having free mobility. Yeah, I think that anything that would help to get people out of their cars into public transit, that would be amazing. What I'm saying is the city does not have the resources to make it free to everybody, but it does have the resources to make it free or close to free to everyone that is poor or that has a disability. But if the province or the federals want to assume that cost, oh, that would be amazing. It would be very much welcome.
And what's your plan to address the homeless crisis, the unhoused crisis in Toronto?
Well, we've had a huge housing crisis because we have not done enough in the last 20 years, not only in Toronto, but all of the municipalities around. So now Doug Ford is coming out with his own housing. And in some way, he's right in the sense that the Liberals, Kathleen Wynne and McGuinty, didn't do it. And also the mayors in Toronto have not done it. And we have a huge crisis. So we need to build lots and lots and lots of housing everywhere. But not what Ford is saying, because Ford is saying in the green belt, and that's totally crazy. I think that's very responsible. But we need. So I do think that also we need to be respectful. The homeless are our brothers, our sisters. It could be anybody. Could be any of us. At some point, we make the wrong decision on something, and we may end up homeless. So the homeless is a human rights issue, and we should approach the homelessness that way. And I think it has been totally wrong. For example, last year, everybody saw on how there were 12 or 13 homeless in Trinity Bellwoods. And John Tory and the city council sent 150 armed police to kick them out, literally kick them out. 13 people kicked out by 150. It's shameful. I mean, also, where are they going to send them? If you don't give them an option, it's totally crazy. By the way, for the listeners to understand, 13 is nothing. The city at no point at that time had more than 200 homeless sleeping on the streets. And the city had over 7,500 in shelters and hotels. So 200 out of 8,000 is almost nothing. So they made a gigantic issue. Also because of the polls, that's the problem. We have mayors that they don't do whatever they think is right, but they do whatever the polls. So the polls said that he was not being strong enough on the homeless issue. So then they overreacted and did these things. So I think, but he continued even after he resigned. He still went to city council and got council to approve a budget over $16 billion. And they were asking for 24/7 warming centers. And they didn't approve them. They approved one. They approved one that, by the way, was a month ago, and they have not even opened there. One, which obviously is not enough. What happens if we don't have warming centers? We are sending the people, these homeless people, that they go to the shelter, they are full, and we don't have warming centers, so they are going to sleep on the trains, on the Tim Hortons, in the libraries, and then people complain, oh, I cannot take public transit because it's full of homeless. Well, if we don't have a warming center, they are not going to disappear. They are going to be, if it's minus 15 outside, they will be in a Tim Hortons or a library or a bus or a train. So I think we need to treat homelessness with a human rights approach. And of course, the end goal has to be to provide a home. That has to be the end goal. But in the meantime, we need to have intermediate solutions.
Hell yeah, good stuff. I mean, that all sounds righteous to me, really. Like, sorry, it's nice to hear someone speak about it in such a way, because I feel like it's most people talk about it, I feel like, very clinically, and also never make the connection between, the lack of services given to people and where they end up, and where we find them in inconvenience. But I realize people aren't going to see me doing the quotation fingers around there.
No, Phil,
audio podcast.
I mean, think of this. We have they approved on that day a budget of over $16 billion. That's a lot of money. And we don't provide a warming shelters for the people or a cooling center in the summer. It's totally inhumane. I mean, there is absolutely no excuse. And I think we have a group of new councilors that I think they're very good, but I think maybe because they were so naive, they were tricked into approving, and the budget was approved 24-1. There was only one vote against it. And but it's really terrible. I think that when we don't care about our most vulnerable people, and I think we should focus on the most vulnerable. And the most vulnerable people by age are the small children, the 0 to 4, or the very old, but also everyone that is poor, everyone that has disabilities, racial minorities, ethnic minorities. So I think that clearly when we do that, it just does not make any sense.
I'd love to get your opinion on the Toronto police budget and whether you think it's too high and what you would do. Obviously, you can't do anything about it this year because the budget's already passed, but I'm talking about if you win for next year, what would some of your plans be? And also, while we're on the subject, I hate to keep bringing this up, but one of your competitors wants to bring back carding, and I'd love to hear your opinion on that as well.
Well, I don't know who wants to bring back carding, or I also don't know who was going to make transit free. But anyway, you have some inside information.
It's the same guy.
Oh,
yeah.
But I think that, well, the police, we need a good police. We need a professional police. We need a police that has been trained and also that will be in sync with our citizens. But also we need transparency. We need to know what are they doing with the money. And we have a police board that doesn't hold the police accountable. They only approve some global policies, but they don't go into detail. No, we need to benchmark our police. We need to compare how our police is doing in cost and in efficiency compared with the police of Vancouver or New York or Boston or Montreal or other places. On every topic, we need to know if they're spending too much money on cars or too much money on something else. So if the horses, if it's good to have mounted police or not. So I think more than anything, I think we should really know if the budget is too small or too big or just right, but also how to make him much more efficient. I'm appalled that is the biggest budget in the city. We give it to them and we don't hold them accountable. No one knows where that money is, how it is being spent, and we don't compare with anybody. And also we don't get results. So we keep giving them money and money and money. And even when they were approving tourists additional millions for them, they were saying that almost everything is gone bad. They were saying it's more carjackings, it's more store robberies, is more and more. Everything is increasing. So why is everything increasing when they're getting more and more money? And even they go to the subway, to the TTC, and they say, "Oh, it's extra. Oh, thank you for having gone a few days, but now that money is finished." I think that is absurd. So I do think that we need to work with them, motivate them, get them enthusiastic, but hold them accountable for every cent. We do it with everybody else. When we give money to parks, we want to see how are they taking care of the parks. When giving money to the TTC, also we want to see where the money is going and the staffing and whatever. We should do exactly the same thing with the money that goes to the police. The police is not an entity that it's running by themselves, and no, they have a city budget. And the police board should really be taking care of it.
I couldn't agree more. I think that Toronto's budget chief is falling asleep at the wheel, but that's just my personal opinion.
No, but you're right. It's too much money. We're talking about billions and billions. We say we don't have money for the homeless. We don't have money for the shelters. We don't have money for the TTC. We don't have money for this. But then we're giving billions. And we don't look at it. I think we should do, for example, not only the police, everybody. When Tori went to a park in June last year. And they said, oh, Mr. Mayor, the water fountains are not working. And then he said, no, half of them are working. The other half are gonna work in July. What, in July? The cost is the same to open the water fountains in April than in July. Why are we opening them in July? It doesn't make any sense. So we should be accountable and someone should have been responsible. So why are we opening the water fountains in July? So someone is not doing their job. And he said, oh, he approved a motion asking parks to please next year think of opening them a little bit earlier. Well, if they can open it earlier with the same budget, not more people, not more money, not nothing, then someone wasn't doing their job. Maybe they should have changed the head of Park and Rec, because there is constantly lots and lots and lots of errors in Parks and Rec, and like that is one of them. So I think I really think the city is poorly managed. I mean, you walk down the streets and the garbage bins, almost half of them are broken. The doors are broken. There's garbage around. And this was outsourced like 12 years ago to a company that they do also the shelters for the public transit. On the shelters, they put advertisement. That's where they get the money in advertising. Those advertising is always perfect. It's very nicely done. The glass is always clean. You see people clean. Why is it that they can keep up the shelters fine, but they don't keep up the garbage fine? It's the same company. So why is it that we have not canceled that?
The bins are right next to the shelters.
Yeah, let's cancel the contract to that company. I'm not against outsourcing. The benefit of outsourcing is that if they don't work properly, then you change them and you invite other companies and you outsource it again, but you must do a really good job. So it is really poor management. We cannot accept what Tory and his people were saying at City Hall, that the issues are technical issues or financial. No, the city is in trouble not because of technical or financial issues. It's political, but not from political parties, about policy. We are not running the city properly. I mean, you take a streetcar. This morning I took the streetcar on Spadina. Every red light, the streetcar stop. Why are these streetcars stopping at the red lights? It doesn't make any sense. Our constitution says all people are equal. If all people are equal, then 100 people on a streetcar should have the right of space of 100 cars with one person. Why is the streetcar stopping at small intersections for cars with one person? No, it's not about money, it's policy. You put a chip, a small chip that costs $20 on the streetcar. And when it's approaching the traffic lights, if it's red, it automatically turns green for the streetcar. So then those 60, 80, 100 people on the streetcar are going to go through green lights always. And it's just a simple issue of democracy. It's not an issue of cost. The same as the water fountains can be open earlier. The streetcars can go faster because they don't have to stop on red lights. And none of that is technical issue. None of that is money issue. It's just doing the right things.
That's interesting. I've never heard that one before. That's actually very interesting.
You know, in most places, in most cities around the world where public transit is a priority, they always have traffic light priority, always. Because, I mean, it makes sense. If you got 60, 80, 100 people, why should they be stopping at every red light? No, they gotta have a priority when they start approaching. And then that's how you're gonna get more people using public transit. If public transit, if people get it with more frequency, if it's going to take you faster, if it's going to be more convenient and more affordable, then people are going to leave their car at home and will use it on the weekends, or might end up not having a car. Cars are very, very, very expensive. You know, people in Ontario that have a car are spending more than 20% of the income on the car. 20%, and if they are low income, it's 30% of the income. So they pay 30% for the car and 30% on housing, so they're 60%, and they haven't even purchased one bread. So it's a huge crisis. So there is almost nothing we could do to improve the financial situation of a person than allowing families to downsize from 2 cars to 1 or from 1 to 0. But the only way to do it is to make it safe and enjoyable to walk, to ride bicycles, and to use public transit.
Absolutely. In terms of your plan for parks, I'd love to hear more about that. And also, you know, I come from sports world. I played baseball my whole life, a little bit of competitive baseball, and I'm just wondering if in your plan for the parks, are they to establish new parks, and if so, how many of these parks are going to have baseball diamonds?
I don't know exactly how many baseball diamonds, but of course we need to do more parks, and we need to do better use of the current parks. I think the park that we have today, we need to have a lot more programs. We don't have enough programs in the parks. So it's not only the infrastructure. As important as the parks are, the infrastructure is the management, the programs, the uses, the activities. And in that case, for example, the suburbs are being, we're failing the suburbs. When I was doing campaign and I would go to parks in the downtown, all of them were full of activities. In the suburbs, they were empty because there were no activities. So we not only need to do walking paths, but we need to do walking groups and baseball activities and so on. So we need to do a much better use of the parks both in the programming and not only in the summer. Parks are a 52-week of the year infrastructure. We need to do much better use in the winter. So for example, we need to have the washrooms open, and they say, oh, but we have winter. So we have always had winter, and we will always have winter. At least in the large and medium-sized parks, we need to winterize the washrooms. We need to winterize the washrooms. That is simply common sense.
What about what about regulating downhill skiing at Riverdale Park? That's the only one I can think of off the top of my head.
Well, I think that it's always good to allow some type of skiing in the city, because then people start getting comfortable. Especially keep in mind that half of us living in the city, we were born in another country. Most in countries where there is no snow, so people don't know. So that's another thing, that we need to allow people to get comfortable with some of these activities also, so that people will enjoy more winter, so that people will not get into their houses and hibernate and get depressed and anxiety, but get out. So we should facilitate lessons on how to do ice skating and how to do skiing and how to do other winter activities, so that a lot of the immigrants will integrate better into the Toronto community.
It does seem like, I know we've already been talking about the mismanagement of the city, but I feel like, I mean, we are just about hitting the end of winter, and we've sort of just seen the last 3 months of the city really failing to clean up sidewalks properly. Like the roads would get cleared pretty quickly, and then the sidewalks would, you know,
Don't
kind of be
forget,
left in the dirt. And
don't forget the bike lanes.
oh yeah, well, yeah, and the bike lanes too. You know, they weren't very well. I don't know. It was. I don't. Again, this doesn't really like go anywhere except for me griping about the city, but it is my favorite thing to do.
No,
But
no.
you know, I wouldn't be griping if I didn't see value and love being in the city. So
No, of course. That's why everybody's in the city, because we live much happier in the city. The city is amazing. By the way, 1 out of 3 people in the city in Toronto lives alone. So the city, the people in the city, the activities, whatever, is kind of our family. So that's why people go to the cities. People say, oh, we don't need more people in Toronto. No, of course we do. And also people come to the cities because there are better parks and theater and activities and festivals and all kinds of things. It's more fun, better schools, better health, better everything. That's why people end up in the cities all over the world. So I think that's good. But sidewalks, for example, the most important infrastructure in the city are the sidewalks. That is, in the sidewalks is where people meet boyfriends and girlfriends, and people meet their neighbors and the people that sell flowers and fruits and coffee and whatever. Sometimes you say, oh, I'm going to go for a coffee, and you take an hour because you met someone, you wanted to watch people go by, whatever. The sidewalk is the life of the city. You go to any city and you leave your backpack and you go out and walking. So, but in Toronto, 24% of the streets do not have sidewalks. 24%. It's crazy. It's 1 out of 4 streets do not have a sidewalk. That's insane. That should be like a human right issue to have sidewalks. When people are forced to walk on the streets, then if there is black ice and you fall down on the sidewalk, well, you might break a leg. But if there's black ice on the street and you fall down, not only you break your leg, but there might be a car coming down and it's gonna kill you. It's insane. The sidewalk should be also always flat. My office is in the junction, and in the junction last year, almost all of the streets were being done new sidewalks. I mean, they were in really, really good shape, but I don't know why, when 24% don't have sidewalks, why are we redoing the ones that are in good? But anyway, all of them, every time there was a driveway, they did a ramp on the driveway, and the ramp was 80% of the sidewalk was the ramp, only 20% flat. Obviously, it has to be the other way around. 20% ramp for the car that goes in and out once or twice a day, and 80% has to be flat. So that people that are with a walker or on a wheelchair or that are blind or whatever, they will find sidewalks that are perfectly flat. So sidewalks are really, really critical. And when it snows, they should be clear. First, we gotta clear the sidewalk. We want children to walk to school. We want people to use public transit, but then we don't plow the sidewalks. So first we gotta plow the sidewalk, then the bikeway, then the sidewalk, then the bikeway, then the street. But we do the opposite. We do the street, and maybe eventually we do the bike lane and then the sidewalk. And that is the, I mean, by any mode, if we are gonna think of vulnerability, the most vulnerable person are the pedestrian, the people walking. And by the way, why is walking so important? Because everybody walks. Everybody, every single trip begins and ends walking. People walk to their cars, people walk to public transit, people walk to places. So walking has to be the priority, but it has not been. So city talk, oh, walking, but then we don't plow the sidewalks, we don't take care of the holes. The same thing with the bike lanes and so on. So we say one thing and then we go and do something else.
Wow, that's yes. I agree with that. You know, even though I do drive, it's mostly for work, but I agree with what you're saying. And we could always walk more. I think everyone could walk more and definitely lead to better health.
No, but also if you drive, at some point you get out of the car and you walk. You're not gonna drive into the stores or into the restaurants. So
That's exactly right.
every car trip begins and ends walking. So every car driver is also a pedestrian. Every car driver is walking. And also what you said now about health, we really gotta work on people being able to live healthier and happier. And part of living healthier is to do physical activity. And the only way that large amount of people do physical activity is if we walk or bike as a normal part of everyday life. There is no other way. It's not about playing baseball. It's not about playing hockey. You might play baseball, but once or twice a week. No, we need people to be physically active 5 or more days a week, 5 or more days, 30 minutes a day. It's not about doing marathons. It's only 30 minutes a day. So the only way is walking or cycling as a normal part of everyday life. That's why also sidewalks and bike lanes are so important. It's not only for mobility, but in addition of mobility, it's for physical health, for mental health, for the environment, for many other ways. Everything is really interwoven.
That's amazing. Go ahead, Phil.
Oh, see, I was just thinking, sort of our working on our format, I guess, for future mayoral candidates. It felt like a good initial question to ask you what specifically about Toronto you liked. So I figured maybe a good bookend question, of that might be, and it could even be stuff we've already talked about. What do you think are the 2 biggest issues facing Toronto? And I know, again, we've talked about some pretty big stuff, including, the Gardner funds just absolutely gobbling everything up and the poor mismanagement of the city. And if those are the 2 things, those could be the 2 things. But I'm just, I'm curious, what are your 2 biggest obstacles the city has?
Well, the first one is mental. We have become hopeless. So I think we need to turn as many people as possible from hopeless to hopeful. We can live better. And that part of being hopeless have made us have such low expectations. I remember the last campaign when I said we're going to lower the speed in all the neighborhoods to 30K an hour. Even the editorial boards of the Globe and Mail or Toronto, oh, how are you going to do it? Oh, everything is difficult. Oh, we're going to have the streets clean. Oh, but how? Like people are almost giving up. So I think that is absolutely terrible. We need to move from hopeless to hopeful and realize that we can be much better. And the second thing I would say, well, I think we need a city really that is affordable, that is beautiful, and that is fun. We also need a city that is fun. And I think part of being fun are the parks and are the festivals and are the libraries and everything. I think the services in general, the services are being very poorly delivered and they could be much better.
Hell yeah. Good stuff. Sounds good to me.
And Gil, just to close off tonight, I'd love for you to, this is your chance to speak with our listeners and let them know why on June 26th they should vote for you. Don't forget to pitch your website. And I just want to let you know that we're going to be there as well on April 3rd on registration day. We're going to be interviewing, so we'll see you there. And so I'm going to give you the floor now to talk directly to the listeners.
Well, what I think, I want to invite the listeners to participate. Whether you vote for me or for someone else, it doesn't matter. But be sure that this makes a huge difference. The city elections are much more important than the federal elections. The federal elections is about international relations and international trade, but this one is about the quality of life of you and your friends and your family. It's about cleaning the snow on the sidewalks. It's about having parks that are not only beautiful but well maintained with lots of activities. It's about having public transit on time, on service, on budget. It's about having a police that is properly trained and sensitized to ethnicities and racial minorities and so on. It's about creating a city that is really better for all of us. And it does make a difference, huge difference, whether the city is properly managed or is not. So I invite you to evaluate the experience, the knowledge, the capacity to get things done, if they have commitments with political parties or with something. Because in my case, I think that I have the knowledge and I have the experience. I have worked in over 350 cities all over the world. In Toronto, I created 880 Cities, a nonprofit that has a simple concept. What if everything that we did in a city had to be good for an 8-year-old and for an 80? Not 8 to 88 and 80 as an indicator. We need to stop building a city as if everybody was 30-year-old and athletics. We need a Toronto for everyone. We need a Toronto that is affordable, that is beautiful, and that is fun.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and just giving us knowledge and letting us know, what we can expect from a Mayor Penalosa.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Philip, for the invitation. I wish you all the best, and I hope that people will prove all of the pollsters wrong that think that very few people are going to vote. We really need a massive vote. Participate. There's lots of candidates with very different ideas. So try to listen as much as possible and make the decision and then go and vote.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Take care.
Thank you.
All right, later, Gil. He went real quick.
Oh, okay. I got some stuff to go through. Are you good?
Yeah, I've got one thought. I'll throw it in at some point.
And that was Gil Penalosa.
Hell yeah, that's my man. That's my boy.
Your political
Gil.
grandfather.
Yes, I almost wanted to bring up the story that I keep bringing up, where I had him meet my dad, and he shook my dad's hand, and he said, "Your son's doing a great job," and I've held on to that. Well, I mean, I was gonna say for years. It's only been 6 months since that event, but Gil, I'm I think I'm surprised at how how much Gil seems to get it in stuff that I don't know, the connection between
Let's go start.
where our unhoused people end up, and their lack of services. I feel like nobody is vocalizing that connection. So I was really glad for him to have done so.
Speaking of which, it's a great point you just hit on. I have this letter. It is from, I don't know who the hell it's from. Uh, it's addressed to the residents of the Strathcona Hotel, which is one of the homeless shelter hotels.
Yeah.
It says the City of Toronto Shelter Support and Housing Administration has informed Homes First that all Homes First residents at 60 York Street are to be relocated by April 12th, 2023. Staff at Homes First and with assistance from City of Toronto Shelter Support and Housing Administration will work with you to develop individualized plans, housing plans, and complete applications for possible opportunities. If your housing is not available before April 12th, you will be temporarily relocated. All relocations must be completed before April 12th. The following relocation options are relocating to the Salvation Army Shelter, 66, I believe it's Norfinch Drive, relocating to other shelter locations within Homes First or the City of Toronto Shelter Support and Housing Portfolio. Supportive housing prioritized. Oh, fuck, this thing went sideways on me. Okay.
Oh, classic.
Supportive housing prioritized through the city's coordinated access approach. For more information, toronto.ca/coordinated access. Rent geared to income housing through My Access to Housing TO, private market housing, and if eligible, financial subsidy. Let's not get carried away. That's not going to happen. Staff are available on site 24/7 to support you throughout this relocation process. Should you have any questions about this move, please do not hesitate to reach out to a staff member. We look forward to working with you to help you find a new location and program that meets your needs. Your thoughts?
Okay. My thoughts are, all of that sounds perfectly reasonable. The issue, of course, comes from the fact that we've just witnessed the city, and their shelter hotel situation in December, the Novotel hotel, and we know how that plays out. It's the city hasn't provided adequate housing for, as far as I understand, they didn't finish providing adequate housing for the people at the Novotel. So I don't know how we expect them to do the same for this hotel. Especially for April 12th, which is I think 3 weeks away.
Well, as you
Like, that
pointed,
doesn't seem.
I was just going to say, as you pointed out when we were talking to Gil, it's getting nicer out there. Maybe the city thinks that it's nice.
Ugh. I sigh not at you, but at the possibility of the fact that could very well be true. Oh no, that's a powerful sigh. Oh God,
That's okay.
fucking
Now,
God damn it.
I thought that I made my point last week when I was banging the Blake Acton drum, but there's been a couple of things, and I'm not going to talk about it as long as we did last week, but there's a couple things I wanted to bring up, and we can go on from there because I'm covering the Blake Acton beat, and I swear to God, man, It's like As the World Turns. Oh, before I get to that, how awesome would it be? I was listening to Gil talk. How awesome would it be if we made a t-shirt that said sidewalks are where you meet your meet boyfriends?
That was really good. I really, you know, I, obviously I have this thing where I'm not very aggressive, but I felt like Gil was talking about the concept of a third place. I don't know if you've heard that concept, Matthew.
What do you mean a third place?
Um, but it's essentially this, I want to say, a societal construct. Maybe I'm phrasing it poorly, but it's like, you live at home, you go to work, and then this idea that you would go somewhere kind of sort of to hang out and meet people. For a lot of people, that is church, which is of course still prevalent. Like churches. So I mean, so hopefully if you understand what I'm saying, church is a perfect example of a third place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get it. No, a lot of people when I was a teenager we used to hang out at the mall. That would be a third place too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah, yeah. So I do kind of feel like I think that's what Gil was sort of like getting on. And it's sort of this, I feel like we have sort of lacked a third place kind of, maybe this all sounds silly.
No, I couldn't. I was glad I wasn't on camera during that because I couldn't stop laughing. I wasn't laughing at him. That is the way he phrased it was just, it was insightful, but it was also funny. Two things can be true at the same time. Anyway, let's get this over
You may have
with.
noticed that I did not want to be, I was not hyper silly with Gil. I was really nervous.
Well, you pulled it through, and you know what? You did good. You did good, my brother. So like I said, I'm not going to spend too much time on this guy. I do want to say that I don't know, man. I don't know how deep I want to go into this because this guy is very condescending. I've read tweets from him in the past week that have said, uh, I can't believe people have the audacity to question me or some shit like that. And things like that irritate me because he's very, yeah, fuck it, I'm gonna say it just like I did last week. He's very Donald Trump. He's very divisive. I don't know, but here's the thing. I don't know if he knows he's being divisive or if he doesn't understand that's what he's doing. That part I haven't figured out yet. But the fact he is being divisive. It's just whether or not it's intentional.
And I think as someone running for public office, as someone who's been running for public office for years, you have to understand that you are answerable to the people who elect you. So you can't have this attitude of how dare they question blank, because every single thing you do is allowed to be questioned. You are running for public office to do good for the public. You are going to be questioned.
Yeah, and he is, you know what? He said rude things to people that ask him questions, and then he'll give a half-ass answer. They don't like it, and he gets nasty. He's put up a few posts this past week where he's taken away. You can't comment. And I'm like, what the fuck?
I, you know, I I don't really believe in the idea of like politicians blocking people on social media.
It's a pussy move.
Um,
Let's call it what it is.
I think you should treat, even if they're not, every single person who can kind of like who does talk to you on social media, treat every single one of them as if they're a constituent, as if you are expecting them to vote for you, even if they can't. Like like this isn't going to be a huge conversation bit, but independent MP from Spadina Fort York, Kevin Vuong, he kind of lashed out at some people on Twitter very randomly. Like he called this one person who I know is like a green candidate, like he kind of helps green candidates, Kyle, I believe Hutton. I don't know, he's a very nice guy. Follow him on Twitter. He kind of just like said something very randomly rude about him. And it's regardless of what's first kind of said, and it wasn't even that rude. You are an elected MP, and you should act a certain way. I mean, I guess I didn't really describe how Kevin acted, but I'm sort of telling him off for it anyways. If you know, you know, Kevin Vuong being a weirdo.
And so I just want to end this Blake news. Fuck, I don't even want to call it that. Whatever.
Yeah, Blake Blackshin.
By saying that, last week I talked about he was a police officer, but we never hear any stories. We don't hear anything. No police, as far as I know, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, listeners, please do that. But as far as I know, no police endorsed him in the last election. But I bring that up to say he posted a link to a YouTube video or a newspaper article or some shit this week, and I think he said something like interesting, and it was it was a Sun article about Josh Matlow facing impaired driving related charge in 2006, and this particular article was published in 2012. So it's not brand new information. That would be a good t-shirt too. It's not brand new information. This is old, but you would think someone who spent 30 years on the police force, if a public official was charged, that goes right to the top of, like, oh, did you hear this person got, like, when they were going after Rob Ford, do you think the cops didn't know? Oh yeah, Rob Ford, yeah, I know him. Of course they did. Like,
wait, he's accusing Josh Matlow of having a DUI?
No. Josh Matlow faced an impaired driving charge, or it says an impaired driving related charge in 2006. I find it hilarious that this was published in 2012 and only coming to light now because Josh Matlow may be thinking about running for mayor, in the same fashion that we all know Doug Ford. Oh, I am so sorry, Rob Ford.
There's a lot of Fords,
right? We all know that Rob Ford got his infamous DUI in Florida in 1999. That was never brought up until he ran for mayor in 2010. Maybe you didn't know that, but I did. Sorry.
I didn't know that. No, I mean, I wasn't as politically involved back then, and I just wasn't aware really of a lot of that stuff.
So I mean, I understand slinging mud, but I mean, keep up to your current shit. Everyone, I mean, most people knew about it, and who care? Like, okay, it's a DUI charge. I get, or a DUI related charge. I get it. It's a sensitive issue, but enough time has passed. And when you have a city councilor that is currently sitting in office facing 2 counts of sexual assault, Josh Matlow's DUI doesn't mean shit.
That's right.
Are we done talking? Are we done talking about this fucking guy yet? Let's move on.
Yeah, we can be done.
So I have I do. Sorry, you go ahead, and then I have a letter I wanted to read, but go ahead.
It's not like a grand thought thing, but I thought I'd tell you, as well as our listeners, anyone who might be interested. I haven't filled out the application yet. I'm working on it, but I would like to run for the TTC board as one of the citizen members. There's nothing beyond that. I just think it's fun to mention that I want to do that.
So what does that entail? Do you need signatures? Do you need support? Is it
No?
hold on, is it an elected position, or does the board elect you? How does that work?
I believe the board elects you. So it's like I've got oh no, I don't have the tab up. I need to bring that back up. But so you apply, it's like, the interesting thing is, I think it's more like a job. So it's like you apply through the website. There'll be a list of, I mean, it's not just TTC board. There's a lot of other boards that are like constantly looking for members.
So hold on. So it's
and
a
you
paid
apply
job?
for it. It actually kind of is. It is. I mean, so
And-
apparently,
Hold on.
they
Hold on.
pay
Hold on.
you.
Let me stop you. Did you just give your notice on this show?
Oh
Oh
no,
no,
because it's
not for this show, but give
no,
your
I know for my job. No. If I so the TTC board, as I understand it, meets either monthly or bi-monthly, and every meeting they get a like a per diem, which to me is insane, of like $500. That's crazy to me. Like, in my mind, I'm working my job. That's an extra $500. That's not the reason I'm doing this, but it's certainly a benefit.
But Phil, what if people smoke a bunch of opium on election day and Blake Acton gets elected and then he's your boss?
I mean, that'll suck, but I mean, my intentions of running for the TTC board are because I, see the issues of the TTC, and I'd like to at least be I mean, it's sort of the same way I ran for city council, where it's like, yeah, I can't be the one controlling all the decisions, but I would like to at least be a voice, especially a voice for, the people who don't just take the TTC because it's convenient, who take the TTC because they need to take the TTC because that's what they have to take as transit. There are people who rely on the TTC. And of course, the people who are currently on council, our previous mayor, are perfectly happy letting the TTC go to shit. And I am not happy to let the TTC go to shit. So that's my TTC board pitch to you.
Awesome. And I also I wish you good luck. And I also don't think that opium would work. People would probably have to drop acid to vote for Blake Acton.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah. Something more fun. No, yeah. They need to do one of the fun drugs, and it had to be provided by him.
Oh, he definitely can afford it. But anyway.
You really enjoyed that one for a moment.
This is a letter from our deputy mayor, Jennifer McKelvey, to the Minister of Justice and Attorney General, Minister Lamenti, David Lamenti, working together to address transit safety. I firmly believe that transit must be safe for everyone, including all of our transit workers. I'm writing you today to build on a request from the Toronto Transit Commission that the Government of Canada work with us to help increase safety for all transit employees. I'm requesting that the Government of Canada amend subsection 269.01 of the Criminal Code to include all transit workers in these provisions, not just operators. While I understand that the Criminal Code includes general provisions that respond to acts of violence committed against anyone, including transit workers, the proposed amendment would act as a deterrent, sending the message that abuse and assault against transit workers will not be tolerated. This change was requested by the TTC last year, which means it was requested by the I was trying to blame John Tory. Fuck. Anyway.
We're allowed to blame. Listen, we can blame John Tory. I don't give a shit. It doesn't matter if it's accurate. We can blame John Tory.
He's not the mayor anymore.
That's true. John Tory's gone. He's not our punching bag anymore. We'll see who our new punching bag is in July.
Getting back to the letter. At the time, you had said you would share the proposal with the appropriate department officials for consideration. Since then, we have seen more attacks on transit workers, and I believe it is important to send a strong message to be sent as soon as possible that violence against the transit workers is totally unacceptable and will be dealt with severely by Canada's justice system. I'm also writing to you to outline the increasing number of societal challenges on transit that have affected the well-being of both TTC employees and customers. These challenges include mental health, substance use, homelessness, and random acts of violence. We have taken a number of steps as a municipal government to respond to these challenges, but we need all governments to work together with us on long-term solutions to many of these challenges. Blah, blah, blah. anyway, there's more, but I'm not going to read it. I want to, you know what? I want to give a shout out to our deputy mayor, Jennifer McKelvey. It's not easy stepping into shoes that were definitely not your own. And you know what?
Really kind of came out of nowhere.
You're right, and it's a hard job. You have all my respect, and for the next 3 months or whatever it is that you are the acting mayor, deputy mayor, whatever title it is. I hope you do well, and when you do well, we are going to acknowledge that, like we're doing right now. I agree that this should have been done. I agree that this should have been done last year. I don't know why it wasn't. I don't know what's going on at the federal government. Because ultimately they're the ones that can change the criminal code. But it's very interesting to me. I don't know if this is protocol. Maybe you can speak to this, Phil. She wrote right to the MP, right? It's the MP. And completely bypassing the provincial government. I don't know if that's okay, if I'm maybe reading too much into it, or
if that is the case, maybe I should look up the statement myself to double check. But it might be that it might be a federal government jurisdiction issue, and that's why maybe she'd be speaking directly to the is it Bill Blair? Is it MP Bill Blair? Because he would be the safety guy, I believe.
No, but this letter was addressed to the Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about, sorry.
Before we move on.
Yes.
Actually, sorry, it's actually not really about the point we wanted to make, except I want to say, because I have on Twitter, I've been critical of McKelvey, specifically when it's she speaks about us needing to reach net zero 2040, and how that kind of conflates with our decreased TTC service. But it's a very good point that you make, that she really was thrown into position that she didn't. Well, I mean, she accepted as deputy mayor, but you never expect 3 months into a term to be thrown into the role of mayor. That is, I guess, that is something to be thought of whenever I think to criticize her. That it is a surprising shift that no one could have predicted in the moment, unless, of course, I don't know. I should give her more credit.
I think you did good there. Let's talk about, we have names every time that we since the resignation, new names come forward. So let's start with the one that we maybe don't have very much to say about, or maybe we do, I don't know. Anna Bialau has confirmed she will run for mayor. Your thoughts?
I definitely feel like, because she stopped being a counselor in 2018, right?
No, she did not run for re-election this past October.
Wait, but she was oh my God, oh no, I need to pay more attention. That is my bad.
We'll just skip right over that.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm concerned that she is very Team Tory. I'm concerned that she has Nick Kouvalis advising her behind the scenes on her campaign. But the things that I have seen have been fairly reasonable. That isn't to say that I should, we should immediately trust everything they do. I do need to look more into Anna Baio. Because again, as I've said to you about Brad Bradford, the specific issue being he says one thing and then he votes the other way. So I'd like to look into Anna's voting record to see what her deal is. So I'm gonna say fairly neutral at this moment, although I do believe she's actually in the lead of in polling, surprisingly.
I actually haven't seen any polling, but that's because I don't really watch the news. But Chris Moyse has Ward 13 counselor has already come out and endorsed her.
People that I like have not been happy about that. I'm not thinking too deeply about it at the moment, but I understand their position that it's sort of like campaigning outside the campaign period. I don't think it's that big a deal, but also I get it. Follow rules because there are rules.
What do you think of her idea to upload the highways to the province? I thought
It's
I thought the
okay.
highways were already under, except for paying for them, because obviously we have to do that.
Well, and I think that's the thing. And I think it might be specifically the gardener. In fact, I could be wrong, but I think Anna is in support of keeping the gardener. And her hope is it her hope is to upload the cost to the province? Which I think
think so.
by the look on your face, I'm gonna assume we're on the same page in saying that's a pipe dream that's never gonna happen. Doug Ford's not gonna take it. No other premier, regardless of their political stance, is going to take it. Nobody wants it.
But Phil, can we agree that, I mean, personally, I don't give a shit who takes it. I want the thing gone. I don't care who pays for it.
Listen, I agree with you. I just I think it's a dream for these Toronto politicians to think that the province will voluntarily take anything. Unless they get something out of it. Like how I believe they wanted to take over the TTC. I shouldn't speak of that. I could be wrong.
Well, actually, you know what? They've taken over a lot of the expansion projects. I don't know if that means they're paying for them or we're paying for them. It's just their name. Because I was my kid goes to school up here, so I was picking her up, and I noticed they're doing the Finch LRT, and it does not say TTC on it. It says Metrolinx.
I think Metrolinx is provincial, so I think you're absolutely correct.
No, Metrolinx is provincial, which is why, going back to the free TTC, it wouldn't work, because the very first thing that would happen, say free TTC is a success and everybody uses it, you know what's going to happen? The GO train's going to go out of business. Anyway.
Well, I mean, at the same time, we don't even have, I think more, well, the pipe dream is, yes, public transit would be free, but obviously there are steps for us to get there, including, I think, fair integration. Because last week, oh my God, the TTC, the subway, I know, Matt, you've said that you haven't taken the TTC in, I think you said 3 years.
So hold on. No, you're right. Let's update. So I've changed my mind, people, for, it doesn't matter why, but anyway, when Phil and I are done at City Hall on April the 3rd, I am going to take the TTC home for the first time in 3 years.
Yeah, that's why they call it the better way, baby. That's not why they call it the better way, baby. Shit, what was I just saying about that?
Oh, I completely fucked up your thought. I apologize.
That's okay. I'll come around to it.
Let's talk about the next person. He's our close personal friend, Mr. Philip de Cruz. He declared a while ago, but it was an oversight. We just didn't. So much shit was happening, and he's like the nicest guy out of the whole pack.
Right.
He's very nice. So sorry, Phil, that we forgot about you. I apologize, but we're going to talk about it right now. He's more vocal on Twitter, but he's also getting out in the community more. I've seen him take a hard stance against Brad Bradford, even though Brad Bradford hasn't declared yet, but I feel like we'll know that on April 3rd. And I
think Phil's position, sorry to interrupt you. Yeah. I feel like Phil's position is more anti old guard. And I mean, I don't disagree with him where his thinking, or at least my understanding of his thinking, is that it's a sort of their allegiance to this old way of thinking, and also to old ideas like the gardener, like how, as Gil mentioned, 7 years ago they made a decision that they're sticking to for some reason. That's some sunk cost fallacy. I think Phil, my understanding of Phil, I could be wrong. Phil can tell me off if I'm wrong, but my understanding is he's rightfully so against kind of anyone who's sort of. I think he's looking for like a renewed uh top a renewed top of council, and I get that. That makes sense.
Absolutely. And like I said, he's a nice guy, and he's not afraid of the big decisions. But yeah, he's working on his website. It'll be available soon, and we'll go from there. We'll probably talk to him on April 3rd. Now, moving along, I wanted to talk about someone that I like, but I'm not sure how you
Ooh.
feel.
Okay.
Giorgio Mammoliti.
So here's the thing. Sort of in the same thing as we're talking 2010 Rob Ford, and I'm like saying I'm very ignorant of it. I honestly don't know a lot about Mammoliti. I've only seen other people online kind of I've seen the picture of him with the City News microphone in his face where he's shirtless. That sounds like that was the thing I didn't get. But I I don't know him well enough to comment.
I will say that he's not afraid to call out corruption. When he was running this past election for mayor of Wasaga Beach, there was some corruption. If you guys want to listen to it, it's available on my other podcast, This Time in History. You just scroll down to find the interview with Giorgio Mammoliti, and you can listen to him talk about it there. He's not afraid to call out the corruption, which is something that I respect, because it takes a lot of guts to stand out there and say that. We go back a little bit off topic, but Phil, you and I are going back and at least maybe not on air, but off air, saying, I'd love to know who leaked John Tory's stuff to the media. I'd love to know. Well, I can guarantee you that if Giorgio Mammoliti knew, he would say it. If Giorgio Mammoliti was the one who did it, he'd say it. And that's
Yeah, which says to me that we can cross him off. He's not the one who did it.
My point is that, my point is that whatever side of the political aisle he sits on, and I think he's closer to my side than your side, the fact that he has the guts to stand up and expose people, that is respect I have for him all by itself. The other stuff we can agree to disagree on, whatever he feels about the gardener or the police budget, which I'm not sure about his positions, for the record. And we'll hope to clarify that on April 3rd. And I'm looking to schedule a one-on-one as soon as possible. But anyway, those are the three that I wanted to cover. And yeah, man, I'm I got one last thing to cover. We talked about Ottawa last week and the death threat, and we're not going to get into that this week, but there is something from the Ottawa Board of Health. It's a short letter. I just wanted to grab your comments because I'm wondering if stuff like this happens in Toronto. You hear about it in other parts of the world, and you're like, wow, I can't believe it's happening there. And then you don't realize it very well could be happening in your own backyard. So very quickly, this letter was addressed. It's got to be January 12th, 2023. I don't know why she just put it online now, but it's addressed to a Miss Elise Banham, Executive Director of Ottawa Birth and Wellness Center. And it says, today's paper spoke about city committees, As a member of the Ottawa Board of Health, citizens expect you to be a role model for our city's residents, and I believe you cannot fulfill that role due to your unhealthy status. It is unacceptable for you to be overweight by the 20 pounds it appears you are carrying. I would be happy to
Jesus.
see, I would, yeah, right? I would be happy to see you on the new committee on the condition that you become a better role model. Yours truly, Elizabeth Darwin.
Holy fuck.
This shit writes itself. I'm telling you.
Like, I mean, here's the thing. I feel like a lot is going on, like, right here. Like, first of all, 20 pounds is your issue? Oh my God. I mean, okay, that's the problem. The problem is that's not the issue. The problem is, I mean, clearly that's, and I feel like some people laugh at the concept of fat phobia, but it's like, hey, 20 pounds. What does this lady look like? She's probably like just got the littlest of like 20 pounds. I'm just like, sorry, I'm like caught off that. Because I'm very self-conscious of my body, even though I want to be a very body positive person, but I can't escape that with my own body because I've got problems.
You got awesome
And
hair, though. You got awesome hair.
Oh God, thank you. I appreciate that. I take that. Um, like it's silly. It's obnoxious. That's not 20 pounds, Matthew. That's
I mean that's apparently the standard in this place. Oh, fuck this lady.
like, I mean, oh, yeah, okay, we are on the same page. This is a fuck this lady. Like it's not that's not
It's
A, that's not the job.
fat,
B, it's not that unhealthy.
it's fat shaming.
It's fat shaming. You're right. Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
How can you hold on. Can we decide whether or not is this a you're fired letter until you lose weight? Isn't that discriminatory?
Oh yeah. Okay, but to be clear, the person who wrote this letter is just like a like like a regular citizen. It's not the boss of any of them.
Oh, no, I actually don't know because the letter was addressed to the executive director. Like Miss Elise Banham is the executive director of the Ottawa Birth and Wellness Center, and this letter was addressed to her by someone named Elizabeth Darwin, whoever the fuck that is.
Okay, I want to see if I can.
This letter
How do you
was
spell her last name?
which Elise Banham, Banham. Elise is
Ooh.
Elyse. What do you see?
She is. Oh, she's. Listen. Again, I'm not interested in fat shaming. I'm not interested in putting anyone down. She's not. Am I not? She's not. She's not fat. She just is not. It's like again, I wouldn't want to label anyone, but she's not. What are they talking about?
I have no idea.
I hate these people.
But I mean,
oh, looks like you're carrying 20 pounds. What are you looking at?
It begs the question: is this shit happening in Toronto? I'd love to know if any listeners, if any board members, anyone.
Oh, you know what?
Write us,
Matthew.
the MuniciPALS
harassment
pod at yahoo.com.
Matthew, I can guarantee you harassment of this type is happening all over the city, everywhere. Everywhere, not just Toronto, everywhere in the country. I imagine this is happening everywhere.
Then here's what we'll do.
Especially to women. Especially to women.
Here's what we'll do. For our listeners who are listening right now, if you email us at the MuniciPALPod at yahoo.com and your story checks out, it's verified, we will read it on the air and we will shame the person who wrote it. and we will say some
Oh
shit
yeah.
because Philip wants to say some shit.
Clearly.
Um,
Like she's I can't believe anyone looked at this person and was just like, they are too much of a whale to represent health.
I mean, what's next? Your hair is too short. Your hair is too long. Your beard is too long. You know what? There are some jobs I go that one of the questions I do ask during an interview is like, do I have to shave my beard? Because I don't like doing that. And the job I have now, they're cool with it. So I'm letting it grow out. But I've had jobs where you got to get rid of the beard, and I'm like, I'll pass. I'm good. I'm gonna keep my beard. Because I tell everybody, they're like, your beard is so kind of uneven and there's a couple patches. I'm like, yeah, I know, but it keeps me warm during the winter, so I'm okay with that. And I'm not, and then I say, and I'm not wearing my beard for any of you. It's for me.
Hell yeah. That's right, my man. Preach it.
Well, do you have anything else that you want to cover before we get out of here?
No, I think we're okay. I was very excited to announce my running for the TTC board.
That's awesome. We
And
should.
now I've gotten this fat shaming moment of guns ablazing, and everyone now understands that I am anti-fat shaming, but also I fat shame myself. But you guys aren't allowed to. I am, but not you. And I don't mean you, Matthew. I mean other people.
And also vote for Phil for TTC board member. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, it's a board member. Yeah. Now again, it is not an elected position. It is more like a job thing.
So what you're saying is,
But it's not a job.
so let's just talk theoretics for a second. So what you're saying is, if you do get elected, you can't tell Rick Leary, the CEO of the TTC, to go fuck himself.
Oh shit, that's a good point. It is a 4-year term, and I don't know if you can be fired from that. So I might be the only person in the position to tell Rick Leary to go fuck himself.
That's awesome. And I can't think of a better way to end the show on that. So for Phil and for Gil and for all the other ills, thank you guys so much for listening.
Solid.
We're going to be back next week with a new episode. We're going to be live at City Hall on April 3rd. There's plenty of ways to listen to us: Spotify, Amazon Music, Podbean, Google fucking Podcast. There's a few others, not Apple, fuck Apple. And that's it. And thank you guys so much for tuning in, and can't wait to do it again next week.